The Morgan Cultural Arts Museum in Hartford, Connecticut, opened its doors at 9 a.m. on October 15th, just as it had every day for the past 47 years. Visitors streamed through the ornate marble lobby, purchasing tickets and collecting audio guides for a self-guided tour through one of New England's most prestigious collections of art and antiquities. Before we dive into this incredible story of patience, technical expertise, and the perfect inside job, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. That day, over 10,000 people would walk through the museum's halls, admiring paintings by masters, ancient sculptures, and a special traveling exhibition that had drawn visitors from around the world. The sounds were familiar and comforting: soft conversations in multiple languages, the gentle click of footsteps on polished floors, and the quiet narration from hundreds of audio guides explaining the history and significance of priceless artifacts. It was a perfectly normal day at one of America's most respected cultural institutions. Families on school vacation, art students taking notes, elderly couples moving slowly through galleries they had visited dozens of times before. Security guards stood at their posts, watching crowds with professional attention, while remaining unobtrusive enough not to disturb the contemplative atmosphere that museums strive to maintain. But hidden among those 10,000 visitors was someone who wasn't there to admire art or learn about history. Someone who had spent 9 months planning the most sophisticated museum theft in decades, using his trusted position and intimate knowledge of security procedures to identify exactly when and how $26 million in priceless jewelry could be stolen without anyone noticing. By the time the museum closed that evening, 17 pieces from the special exhibition would be gone, replaced with replicas so sophisticated that their absence wouldn't be discovered for 4 more days. The theft would be accomplished without triggering a single alarm, breaking a single lock, or leaving any obvious evidence of criminal activity. The perpetrator would walk out through the front door, past security cameras and metal detectors, carrying his stolen fortune in a case marked audio equipment, property of Morgan Cultural Arts Museum. To everyone who saw him, he looked exactly like what he was supposed to be: a trusted employee doing routine maintenance work. The perfect crime hidden in plain sight. The Morgan Cultural Arts Museum houses one of the most significant collections of European art and antiquities in the United States. With holdings valued at over $800 million accumulated through decades of careful acquisition and generous donations, the museum's reputation for security and conservation had made it a preferred destination for traveling exhibitions from major institutions worldwide. In the fall of 2023, Morgan was hosting Crowns of Empire, Royal Jewelry Through the Centuries, a once-in-a-lifetime exhibition featuring pieces on loan from the British Museum, the Louvre, and private collectors across Europe. The exhibition included diamond-encrusted tiaras worn by European royalty, Fabergé eggs commissioned by Russian czars, and ancient ceremonial jewelry dating back over 1,000 years. The centerpiece of the exhibition was the Pemberton Diamond Tiara, created in 1847 for Queen Victoria's coronation anniversary and featuring over 400 diamonds in an intricate platinum setting. The tiara alone was valued at $12 million, while the complete exhibition represented nearly $60 million in irreplaceable historical artifacts. This was the kind of exhibition that defines a museum's reputation, explains Dr. Patricia Williams, former curator of European decorative arts. These pieces had never been displayed together before, and many had never left their home institutions. The insurance requirements alone cost us nearly $2 million. Security for the exhibition was unprecedented in the museum's history. Each piece was protected by individual motion sensors, calibrated to detect the slightest movement. Glass cases were equipped with pressure-sensitive alarms that would trigger if the display surface was disturbed. Infrared sensors created invisible barriers around each exhibit, while 24-hour camera surveillance recorded every square inch of the gallery spaces. The security system was designed and installed by Meridian Protection Services, the same company that protected the Metropolitan Museum of Art and the National Gallery. Motion detectors were sensitive enough to detect a sheet of paper being slipped under a display case, while the camera system could identify individual faces from across a crowded gallery. "We had state-of-the-art everything," recalls former security director Robert Chen. Motion sensors, pressure plates, infrared barriers, facial recognition cameras. The system cost more than most museums' entire annual budgets. It should have been impossible for anyone to steal so much as a postcard without triggering multiple alarms. The exhibition's security protocols required all staff members to undergo enhanced background checks and additional training. Guards worked in pairs during high-traffic periods, while overnight security included armed personnel and random patrols every 15 minutes. Access to the exhibition galleries after hours required authorization from 2 different supervisors and electronic verification of identity. But even the most sophisticated security systems have vulnerabilities, especially when they must accommodate the legitimate needs of museum operations. Exhibitions require regular maintenance, conservation work, and technical support that necessitate after-hours access by trusted staff members. The audio guide system in particular required frequent updates as new information about the artifacts became available. Recordings had to be tested for sound quality, content had to be verified for accuracy, and technical equipment needed regular maintenance to ensure optimal visitor experience. This legitimate operational requirement would prove to be the fatal flaw in an otherwise impregnable security system. Marcus Lane was exactly the kind of person museums prefer to hire for technical support positions: quiet, reliable, and completely uninterested in drawing attention to himself. At 42 years old, he had worked as a freelance audio technician for over 15 years, specializing in museum installations and educational content production. Marcus had first been hired by the Morgan Cultural Arts Museum 6 years earlier to update their aging audio guide system. His work was so competent and professional that he became their preferred contractor for all audio-related projects, from exhibition recordings to equipment maintenance and system upgrades. Marcus was invisible in the best possible way, recalls former exhibitions coordinator Jennifer Martinez. He would show up, do excellent work, and leave without disrupting museum operations. Never caused problems, never needed supervision, never gave us any reason to worry about his presence in restricted areas. Marcus's background check had revealed exactly what museums look for in contract employees: steady work history, no criminal record, excellent references from previous clients. His personal life was unremarkable to the point of being forgettable. Divorced, no children, lived alone in a modest apartment, drove a 10-year-old Honda Civic. His technical expertise was impressive, but not unusual for someone in his field. He understood audio equipment, computer systems, and the complex integration required for modern museum installations. His proposals were always reasonable, his work was always completed on schedule, and his invoices were always accurate. What wasn't apparent from his background check was Marcus's growing obsession with the valuable artifacts he recorded information about every day. Over 6 years of working in major museums, he had developed an encyclopedic knowledge of art valuation, insurance procedures, and security systems that protected priceless collections. He asked a lot of questions about the pieces he was recording, remembers Dr. Williams, but we encourage that. The more he understood about the artifacts, the better his audio content would be. His curiosity seemed professional and appropriate. Marcus had also developed relationships with security staff, maintenance workers, and other behind-the-scenes personnel who kept the museum functioning. He was friendly but not intrusive, helpful when asked but never pushy about offering assistance. Over time, he became part of the institutional furniture, someone who belonged there and could be trusted with access to sensitive areas. His contract for the Crowns of Empire exhibition was routine, involving the creation of detailed audio content for each piece in the collection. The work required him to spend hours in the gallery spaces, often after public hours when he could record without background noise from visitors. This legitimate access would provide Marcus with everything he needed to plan and execute one of the most sophisticated museum thefts in American history. Marcus's preparation for the heist began 9 months before the Crowns of Empire exhibition opened, when he first learned about the planned display through his contacts in the museum's exhibitions department. The scale and value of the collection immediately caught his attention, but he understood that stealing from such a high-profile exhibition would require months of careful planning. His first step was obtaining detailed information about the security systems that would protect the jewelry collection. Using his legitimate access to install and test audio equipment, Marcus was able to observe security personnel as they programmed alarm systems, tested motion sensors, and conducted routine maintenance on protective equipment. He was always around when we were working on security installations, recalls former guard supervisor David Kim, but that was normal. Audio technicians need to understand how security systems work so their equipment doesn't interfere with alarms or sensors. We actually encourage contractors to observe our procedures. Over several months, Marcus compiled a comprehensive understanding of the museum's security protocols. He learned the timing of guard rotations, identified blind spots in camera coverage, and discovered the specific procedures used to temporarily disable alarms during legitimate maintenance work. Most importantly, he identified a critical vulnerability in the system: the brief window each night when security sensors were disabled to allow cleaning crews to work around the exhibition cases without triggering false alarms. This maintenance period lasted exactly 7 minutes and occurred at the same time every night to minimize disruption to the overall security system. Marcus also began planning the technical aspects of the theft. He researched methods for creating high-quality replicas of jewelry pieces, learning about 3D scanning technology, precious metal casting, and synthetic diamond production. His plan wasn't simply to steal the jewelry, it was to replace it with replicas sophisticated enough to pass casual inspection. The replica concept was brilliant, observes art crime specialist Dr. Michael Torres. Most museum thefts are discovered immediately because the missing pieces leave obvious gaps in displays. But if you replace stolen items with convincing fakes, the theft might not be discovered for days or weeks. Creating convincing replicas required detailed measurements and photographs of each target piece. Marcus used his legitimate audio recording sessions to conduct this reconnaissance, bringing photography equipment under the guise of documenting pieces for audio content production. He also began acquiring the specialized tools and equipment needed for the theft. A foam-lined case disguised as audio equipment would carry the stolen jewelry. Electronic devices capable of temporarily bypassing security sensors were built into fake audio guide shells. Everything was designed to appear completely legitimate to anyone who might observe his activities. The final element of Marcus's plan was perhaps the most sophisticated. He created false work orders and maintenance schedules that would provide legitimate cover for his presence in restricted areas during unusual hours. The paperwork was so convincing that it passed review by multiple supervisors without raising any suspicions. He understood the bureaucracy as well as the technology, explains former museum administrator Patricia Santos. The fake work orders looked exactly like legitimate maintenance requests. They went through proper channels, had appropriate authorization signatures, and addressed realistic technical issues that would justify after-hours access. By the time the Crowns of Empire exhibition opened to the public, Marcus had spent 9 months preparing for a theft that would take less than an hour to execute. October 15th was chosen for the theft because it coincided with a scheduled software update for the museum's audio guide system. Legitimate maintenance work that would provide perfect cover for Marcus's presence in restricted areas after normal operating hours. Marcus arrived at the museum at 6:30 p.m., 90 minutes after the last visitors had departed and 30 minutes after the building had been secured for the night. His access was completely legitimate, authorized by work orders he had submitted weeks earlier for testing new audio content and updating system software. He came in through the staff entrance, like always, recalls night security supervisor Robert Martinez. Had his badge, his equipment case, proper paperwork. Everything looked exactly like routine maintenance work we'd seen him do dozens of times before. Marcus proceeded directly to the audio control booth, where he began the software update process that would provide his alibi for the next several hours. The update was real and necessary, but it also created the perfect excuse for being in the building during the critical window when security protocols would be temporarily modified. At 8:47 p.m., Marcus left the control booth carrying a foam-lined case labeled Audio Equipment, property of Morgan Cultural Arts Museum. To security cameras and guards, he appeared to be transporting routine technical equipment to the exhibition. Galleries for testing and calibration work. The case actually contained the specialized tools Marcus had spent months preparing: electronic devices for bypassing security sensors, precision instruments for removing jewelry from display cases, and foam padding for protecting stolen artifacts. During transport, Marcus entered the Crowns of Empire Gallery at exactly 8:52 p.m., timing his arrival to coincide with the daily maintenance window when motion sensors were temporarily disabled for cleaning crew access. Using bypass codes he had observed security personnel enter during previous maintenance sessions, Marcus extended the sensor deactivation period from 7 minutes to 15 minutes. The bypass system was designed for legitimate maintenance emergencies, explained security consultant Dr. Jennifer Walsh. If cleaning crews encountered unexpected problems, supervisors could extend the maintenance window remotely. Marcus had learned the codes by observing routine operations over several months. Working with practiced efficiency, Marcus removed 17 pieces of jewelry from their protective cases, replacing each stolen item with sophisticated replicas Hidantori had created using 3D scans and high-quality materials. The substitutions were so precise that display cases appeared completely undisturbed after his work was completed. The stolen jewelry was carefully packed in foam-lined compartments within his equipment case, organized to prevent damage during transport and designed to pass X-ray screening if questioned by security personnel. Each piece was wrapped in materials that would block electronic tracking devices and prevent detection by metal sensors. Marcus completed the theft in exactly 12 minutes, well within the extended maintenance window he had programmed into the security system. At 9:07 p.m., he reactivated all alarms and sensors, leaving the gallery in exactly the same condition as when he entered, except that $26 million in priceless artifacts had been replaced with expertly crafted fakes. The technical execution was flawless, observes art crime investigator Dr. Sarah Kim. He understood every aspect of the security system, had legitimate access to override codes, and possessed the skills needed to work quickly and precisely under pressure. It was a masterpiece of criminal planning. Marcus returned to the audio control booth, where he continued working on the software update until 11:30 p.m. His presence was documented by security cameras and verified by guards who observed him working on legitimate technical tasks throughout the evening. He left the museum at 11:47 p.m., carrying the same equipment case he had brought in 5 hours earlier. To anyone watching, he appeared to be concluding routine maintenance work that had kept him in the building longer than usual. Exactly the kind of technical problem that audio contractors occasionally encountered. The theft was complete, and it would be 4 more days before anyone realized that $26 million in priceless jewelry had been stolen. The theft was discovered on October 19th during a routine condition assessment conducted by conservation specialists from the lending institutions. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a jewelry expert from the British Museum, was examining the Pemberton diamond tiara when she noticed subtle differences in the setting that suggested the piece might not be authentic. The proportions were slightly off, Dr. Vasquez later testified. The diamonds were the correct size and cut, but the platinum work showed machine precision rather than the handcrafted irregularities you'd expect in a 19th century piece. It was beautifully made, but it wasn't the original. Closer examination revealed that the tiara was an extremely sophisticated replica, created with such attention to detail that it had passed casual inspection for 4 days. When security personnel checked other pieces in the exhibition, they discovered that 16 additional items had been replaced with high-quality fakes. The initial reaction was disbelief, recalls museum director Dr. Michael Chen. How do you steal 17 pieces of jewelry from the most secure exhibition in the museum's history without triggering a single alarm? The security system showed no breaches, no anomalies, no indication that anything unusual had occurred. The FBI's art crime team was called immediately, beginning an investigation that would involve dozens of agents and specialists in museum, security, art forgery, and organized crime. The case was treated as a potential national security issue due to the international nature of the stolen artifacts and the sophisticated methods used in the theft. Initial investigation focused on the security systems themselves. Every sensor was tested, every camera angle was analyzed, every access log was reviewed for anomalies. The security company that had installed the protective equipment conducted their own investigation, looking for technical failures that might explain how the theft had occurred. We assumed the security system had been compromised, explains FBI Art Crime Team Coordinator Agent Patricia Williams. The theft was so sophisticated that we initially looked for evidence of hacking, electronic interference, or systematic sabotage of protective equipment. But technical analysis revealed that all security systems had functioned normally throughout the period when the theft occurred. Motion sensors had operated correctly, cameras had recorded continuously, and access logs showed no unauthorized entries or suspicious activities. The breakthrough came when museum archivists discovered anomalies in the audio guide system's computer files. Duplicate metadata entries indicated that external storage devices had been connected to museum computers, while file timestamps showed that audio content had been accessed during unusual hours. The digital forensics told a different story than the security systems, explains cybercrime specialist Dr. Jennifer Martinez. Someone with legitimate access had been using museum computers for unauthorized purposes, copying files and creating content that wasn't part of approved audio guide materials. The investigation traced the unauthorized computer access to Marcus Lane's personal laptop, which contained detailed photographs and measurements of jewelry pieces that could only have been obtained through intimate access to the exhibition. More damaging was the discovery of 3D modeling software and files showing the design process for creating sophisticated replicas. Physical evidence sealed Marcus's fate. Fingerprint analysis of the display cases revealed his prints on interior surfaces that should only have been accessible during the theft. DNA evidence on the replica jewelry confirmed his involvement in their creation and placement. The evidence was overwhelming once we knew where to look, Agent Williams explains. Marcus had left a comprehensive trail of digital and physical evidence that documented every aspect of his planning and execution. He was technically sophisticated but not forensically aware. Marcus Lane was arrested at his apartment on October 23rd, 8 days after the theft and 4 days after its discovery. FBI agents executing a search warrant found him in the process of packing personal belongings, apparently preparing to disappear before law enforcement could identify him as a suspect. He wasn't surprised to see us, recalls Agent Williams. He opened the door, looked at our badges and said, "I've been expecting you." No resistance, no attempts to flee, no denials. He just asked if he could finish packing his laptop. The search of Marcus's apartment revealed the sophisticated operation he had been conducting for months. Computer equipment for 3D modeling and replica creation, precious metalworking tools, and reference materials about jewelry valuation and art forgery filled his small workspace. Most significantly, investigators recovered approximately $6 million worth of stolen jewelry that Marcus hadn't yet had time to sell. The pieces were hidden in a specially constructed compartment behind his bedroom wall, carefully organized and protected to prevent damage during storage. He had kept the most valuable pieces, explains art recovery specialist Dr. Michael Torres, probably planning to sell them gradually through international dealers and private collectors. The $6 million we recovered represented about a quarter of the total theft value. Marcus's computer files revealed extensive research into black market art sales, international smuggling networks, and the procedures used by private collectors to acquire questionable pieces. He had identified potential buyers in Europe and Asia who might purchase stolen artifacts without asking difficult questions about provenance. Financial records showed that Marcus had already sold approximately $14 million worth of stolen jewelry through a network of dealers and collectors across 3 continents. The transactions were carefully structured to avoid detection by law enforcement agencies that monitor large cash movements and suspicious art sales. He understood the international art market better than most legitimate dealers, observes Dr. Torres. The sales were conducted through intermediaries, paid for with cryptocurrency, and designed to obscure the connection between the stolen pieces and their ultimate buyers. However, approximately $6 million worth of stolen jewelry remained unaccounted for. Marcus refused to reveal the location of these pieces during questioning, leading investigators to believe he had hidden them as insurance against prosecution or as resources for a potential escape. Marcus was charged with theft of cultural property, conspiracy, money laundering, and violation of federal laws protecting artifacts on loan from foreign institutions. The international nature of the stolen pieces elevated the charges to federal crimes carrying potential sentences of up to 30 years in prison. This wasn't just theft, explains federal prosecutor David Kim. Marcus had violated international cultural property agreements, damaged relationships between American museums and foreign institutions, and undermined confidence in our ability to protect loaned artifacts. The charges reflected the broad scope of his criminal activity.